Good, monks, good. It is good that you understand my teaching. Truly, the stream of blood that you have shed throughout all your past lives, wandering through this long course, that amount of blood is more than the waters of the four great oceans. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, the monks listening to him delighted in his statement. And while this exposition was being spoken, the minds of the 30 monks from Pava were liberated from the taints of non-clinging. This is an excerpt from Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation of the ancient Pali Canon, the sacred collection of Buddhist scriptures. In this profound moment, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, met with a group of 30 monks. Through this sermon alone, he guided all 30 to a permanent state of enlightenment instantly. The following will be a review of In the Buddha's Words by Bhikkhu Bodhi, the famous compiled Pali Canon text produced by Wisdom Publishing House. Reading the Pali Canon, the sacred text of Buddhism, is more than just an intellectual exercise. It feels like unlocking the secrets of the universe. I chose to start my channel with a review of this book because I genuinely believe it is the most life-changing text that I have ever encountered, bar none. In my 10 years of studying history, philosophy, and religion, I have never come across a book that so clearly illuminates the way to live, to conduct oneself, and to see the world. For decades, I sought answers to life's deepest questions. How did creation come to be? What is the purpose of life? And I myself, while I'm not a clean-shaven monk in saffron robes, hell, I wouldn't even call myself a Buddhist, this text brought me closer than anything else to finding answers to those questions. To begin, this book lays out the human condition on the table, soberly and plainly. Human beings in this nasty, brutish, and short life, as the famous philosopher Thomas Hobbes said, they will experience birth, suffering, aging, disease, and death. The actions of thought, speech, and mind that they commit will leave a karmic trail that will bless them or curse them in this life and the life to come. Or more accurately, the many lives to come. The innumerable lives that they will course through for an incalculably long span of time. The Buddha says that it is longer than it would take to raise a mountain to the ground with a sheet of cloth. If this sounds heavy and morbid, don't worry. The Buddhist cosmology, as laid out in this book, is not only a sobering truth, but it's a gospel. It bears good news. Yes, every being is subject to birth, old age, disease, and death, but these phenomena are transient and ephemeral. Further, a key implication in this ontology is that every single sentient being is destined to become a Buddha. Throughout the cycles of death and rebirth, our merit, our karma will build. We will find the Noble Eightfold Path, and through moral discipline and meditation, we will be victors over this world of suffering. On the author, Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi was a Jewish American born in New York. He was ordained a novice practitioner in the Mahayana Buddhist school of thought in 1967 and obtained a PhD in philosophy in 1972. He has been at the cutting edge of Western translation of the Pali Canon for decades, and truly, us in the West, in the Anglosphere in general, are more than fortunate enough to have him compile this revelatory text. This is not a complete translation of the Pali Canon. If it was, this video would likely take about 5 hours to complete. Rather, the author compiles and renders this vast tome of scripture to get you key sources of doctrine, also known as the Dharma. In addition, before beginning a new section, you can expect a professional exegesis written by the author on the chapter or set of chapters that you are set to read. but I wanted to give a fair warning to readers. At times, this text can feel hypnotically repetitive. Many readers might find this tedious. Personally, I found that it reinforced my understanding of critical concepts. The Buddha's discourses often resemble, in a very eerie fashion, Socratic dialogues in Plato's work, with methodical questions and answers probing ethical, doctrinal, and practical matters. The result is an engaging and a very intellectually stimulating read. Every page of this compilation brims with profound wisdom, philosophical depth, or lyrical beauty. I invite you, open the book to any page, and one of three things might happen. You'll be awestruck, brought to tears, or inspired to make a meaningful change in your life. For example, after reading the Buddhist Critique of Blind Dogma, I became more skeptical of organized religion and the authority of those who fail to substantiate their doctrines, or use their robes or positions of authority to merely assert themselves. Moreover, like the men who I described in the beginning of the video, who realized that their own spilled blood surpassed the waters of the ocean, I embraced veganism and sought to eliminate even the smallest actions that may cause harm. The practice of meditation, which I once dismissed as New Age nonsense, became a vital part of my life, and I now try to practice around 20 to 40 minutes a day. I attend meditation groups weekly, and I try to incorporate loving kindness prayers for the well-being of all, a practice that has brought me immense joy, warmth, and serenity. On another note, a more universal note, the Buddhist cosmology, as Bhikkhu Bodhi describes and translates, is not secular. It has its gods, demons, heavens and hells, miracles, and divine powers. We can read an excerpt from the text. The Buddha says, he's speaking to a group of monks, that he, having cultivated for 7 years a mind of loving kindness, for 7 eons of contraction and expansion, I did not return to this world. Whenever the eon contracted, I reached a plane of streaming radiance, and when the eon expanded, I arose in an empty divine mansion, and there I was Brahma, the great Brahma, the unvanquished victor, the all-seeing, the all-powerful. 36 times I was Saka, ruler of the Devas, and many hundreds of times I was a wheel-turning monarch, righteous, a king of righteousness, conqueror of the 4 regions of the earth, maintaining stability in the land, in possession of the 7 treasures. What need is there to speak of mere local kingship? Right, so as you can see very clearly, this is not a secular text by any means, right? The Buddha is not a secular humanist. He's not David Hume. He's not Sam Harris. This is a religious text, and the Theravada school of Buddhism, which the Pali Canon is the main text for, is a fantastical religion. However, in Buddhism, if you don't believe in devas, the Hindu gods, ashuras, reincarnation, miracles, it's not like you're going to be damned to hell. You won't see a bad fate immediately. With disciplined moral living, following the Eightfold Path, and spiritual practice in the form of Vipassana meditation or loving kindness meditation, we can lead ourselves to happiness in this life and the next. However, the Buddhists say that if you adopt the right view, it will save you plenty of time and heartache. I myself, I'm a little bit more on the skeptical and reserved side, so I'll leave that. So I won't drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak. But many people have found that these grand narratives about samsara, about reincarnation, the cycle of death and rebirth, make them find a great amount of meaning and sense to the world. And for that, I say God bless. In a nutshell, alone, you gain great benefit from meritorious deeds themselves. However, if you take refuge in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, you will reap great reward. Westerners such as Nietzsche or Oswald Spengler view this Buddhist emphasis on another world as nihilistic or life-denying, where weaker men who cannot face strife or suffering deny themselves in the hopes of a reward in heaven. However, this tome gives instruction to laymen with families to grow happy and wealthy, and even encourages wheel-turning monarchs to act generously, with grace for the sake of themselves and their subjects. To accept the Buddhist path, you don't have to automatically shave your head and go into homelessness, or abstain from power politics or business. The Noble Eightfold Path, the Buddhist commandments will say, is a practical guide to ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. Lay practitioners can live fulfilling lives without renouncing their families or professions. Buddhism doesn't demand asceticism from everyone, but it does offer tools for deep transformation. In this translation of the Pali Canon, we can see that the essential Buddhist doctrine can be summed in 4 statements. Life is suffering. It is called dukkha. It is unsatisfying, stressful, or containing various magnitudes of suffering. The second noble truth is that the cause of suffering is craving, and necessarily the cessation of craving or desire will lead to a cessation of suffering. The fourth noble truth is, if one wishes to cease craving and thus cease suffering, one must follow the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddhist practitioner disciplines himself in the Noble Eightfold Path. Following these moral precepts are essential to one's peace, happiness, and fate. They go as follows, with excerpts from the Pali Canon. Right view. The Pali Canon asks, what is right view? It is understanding suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the way leading to its cessation. This includes understanding the Four Noble Truths and the nature of karma. Right intention. And what is right intention? The intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and of harmlessness. Right speech. Abstaining from lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. That is right speech. Right action, which is abstaining from killing living beings, from taking what is not given, and from misconduct in sensual pleasures. That is right action. Right livelihood. That is avoiding the livelihoods that bring harm to other beings, such as trading in weapons, trading in living beings, animals, the production of meat, the production of intoxicants, drugs, and poisons. Right effort. The effort to prevent unwholesome states, abandon arisen unwholesome states, and to cultivate wholesome states, and maintain arisen wholesome states. Right mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness: contemplation of the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. And right concentration, the unification of the mind through the 4 jhanas, right, which are the 4 states of meditative absorption. In addition to the following moral discipline, monks also follow the 8 moral precepts to strengthen their ascetic training. This includes refraining from killing, stealing, sexual activity, lying, eating only 1 meal a day before noon, avoiding intoxicants, and even abstaining from entertainment, or laying on overly comfortable or high furniture. This is to reduce sensual distractions, strengthen willpower, and detach from addicting worldly pleasures. This book also contains meditation instruction directly from the Buddha himself. He advises his disciple Ananda, which in some traditions is a Buddha's cousin himself. He advises him to go into nature, to sit down with closed legs, and put his awareness on the changing breath with every inhale and exhale, noting the duration and the experiences that one feels when meditating. Further, adept practitioners can even control their mind into experiencing tranquility, rapture, and gladdening of the mind. Admittedly, in my experience, at least with Bodhi's translation and exposition, this instruction was not so detailed, so it left a bit wanting. That said, there is no shortage of literature in the Theravada or Mahayana traditions, the ancient two Buddhist traditions, that will give you deep instruction and detailed instruction into meditation. After mastering the spiritual life in its moral, ascetic, and meditative components, one achieves nirvana, the extinguishment of desire, which is employed in metaphor as a fever or as a raging fire. The goal of Buddhism is not merely to live a happy, joyous life. It is not merely to experience eons of bliss and great joy in the heavenly realms. Rather, it is to find true joy and rapture in nirvana. As the Buddha says, "Monks, I will teach you the uninclined, the taintless, the truth, the far shore, the subtle, the very difficult to see, the unaging, the stable, the undisintegrating, the unmanifest, the unproliferated, the peaceful, the deathless, the sublime, the auspicious, the secure, the destruction of craving, the wonderful, the amazing, the unailing state, nirvana." And what, monks, is the destination? The destruction of lust, the destruction of hatred, the destruction of delusion. This is called the destination. This is the optimistic and life-affirming kernel in all of Buddhism. While life itself may be rife with tremendous suffering mild or intense, it has a surefire resolution for all sentient beings. This pain that we feel is ephemeral, illusory, and impermanent, as is all things. However, the enlightened Buddha nature is the only thing in samsara that is described as being unconditioned, as eternal. With practice and moral discipline, we can finally see through the veil of delusion and eternally take part in the sweet fruit of nirvana. Thank you.